Should you give an F about God of War 2018? Welcome back, FF family. My name is Dylan, and today I'm here to give my platinum review of God of War 4. As you all know, I don't just beat the games, but I love to platinum them. Let's get right into it. For a bit of background, I've beaten God of War 1 through 3 on the PS2 and then the PS3, and I watched recaps of the games in between that I didn't personally play that was on the PSP or the PS2. Lately, I've been working my way through all the parts of the PlayStation catalog that I never experienced before, and that brings me right here to God of War 2018. Before we go any further, full warning, this review contains major story spoilers. They can't really be avoided with the gameplay you'll be seeing, so consider yourself warned. Let's start off with the story. This game is damn near perfect. We're introduced to an aging Kratos who is grieving the death of his wife, struggling to be a more present father, and still dealing with the ghost of his past. Pun absolutely intended. Right from the opening moments, the story pulls you in immediately. The seamless transition between gameplay and cutscenes was a huge hallmark of this game at the time, and honestly, it's still very impressive today. There's no hard cut, no fade to black, you're always in the moment and that immersion never breaks. I can't tell you until you play it how impactful it was to just go from gameplay to running up to a cutscene and you never feel like you're taken out of the game at all. The foreshadowing throughout the game is incredibly well done. Early on, you see Atreus lose control and repeatedly stab a troll in anger. Kratos pulls him off of the troll and tells him to utilize his anger as a weapon. Let that rage be used appropriately, rather than let it consume him. That leads right into your first boss battle, which feels like a Super Saiyan fight back in Dragon Ball Z, where you have Baldur, who is a Norse god, clearly coming in looking for somebody, and during that fight you get your Spartan Rage mechanic. This power is really fun because it makes you invulnerable, hits harder, and allows you to actually heal whenever you make a landing hit. It's cool that they talked about this earlier, less than 10 minutes ago, and then now you're utilizing that as an ability in the game. That's something people don't really see in video games, really at all. And I don't think whether in the past, present, or potentially in the future, I just hope this gets utilized more. It's just very impressive storytelling. Not only is it done here, but you see a lot of those used later on, whether it be the artifacts or other powers you utilize later on. The story never feels dull during this. It's full of mystery, and it never really slows down. There's not a lull when trying to discover something new into the next story beat. It's all great. Even the ending leaves you with lingering questions, clearly setting up Ragnarok and the inevitable confrontation you'll have with Thor. It's confident storytelling that knows exactly where it's going. And speaking of where it's going, the end when you finally get to Jotunheim and you see Kratos dying on the wall with Atreus there, I really want to know what that leads to. It makes me really excited to play Ragnarok. Now gameplay wise, God of War 2018 makes a massive shift. Instead of the semi-isometric camera angle from earlier entries, the game moves to a tight third-person action RPG perspective, which completely changes how the game feels, and honestly, it works incredibly well. Kratos loses his iconic Blades of Chaos, and at least at first, in favor of the Leviathan Axe, a weapon given to him by his wife. And speaking of Thor, it really makes you feel like Thor holding and grasping the Mjolnir. The hammer that he has just really is inspiring because it reminds me of Avengers during this time when that movie was out and everyone wanted to feel like how that was to wield it. This feels exactly like that hammer, and I can't wait to use it again when Ragnarok hits. Now, back to the Blades of Chaos though, it does feel a bit risky for sure. I don't know if any other franchise that took away an iconic weapon. Think of going into Kingdom Hearts 4 and they hit you with the, oh hey, we're no longer using Keyblades. It's the same kind of takeaway here. And it pays off. It is so fantastic. They take so many risks when it comes to Kratos being a humanizing person now into a father, from this blood-crazed maniac that's bent on revenge, to being calm, cool, collected, but still has anger and resentment towards himself, to now the Leviathan Axe being a brand new weapon. Every hit you make in this game feels like it has weight behind it. enemies react properly, you can freeze targets, recall the axe like the Mjolnir as I mentioned before, you can chain attacks together in ways that feel brutal and satisfying, and stamina bars are introduced to enemies to wear them down and open them up for executions in combat that never feels stale. Even right now, my favorite parts are just going bare fist to get that stamina bar even higher and quicker, just so I can execute them. It's just very satisfying in this game, and it's probably my favorite part of the new gameplay changes. Speaking of taking risks, we talked about the father and, not using the blades, but they do return. And when they do, it's amazing. It is such a great payoff. Once you reach Helheim, that moment hits pretty hard because you have to try and save Atreus and you have to beat enemies there that are invulnerable to your Leviathan axe. And he's called upon by Mimir saying he needs to be able to use a weapon to actually hurt them, and that's when he knows to get his swords. When you see him pull out the blades, it's a perfect callback. They feel just as good as they did back on the PS2 and the PS3, and story-wise, it makes total sense why Kratos would need them again, and I can't stress enough because I want to show you here what it looks like when you get there, but I can't tell you enough that if you haven't experienced this in-game, it still hits just as hard. It was great going into blind with this, and I hope it doesn't take away from your experience, but I can't talk about the story-wise and gameplay connection that this has here to really show how great and cool it is that these blades came back. It was such a hype moment, and I pretty much used them the remaining of the game, besides a few boss fights here and there. To wrap up gameplay, we do have a lot of side content and world building that goes on. With all of it, there's so much, I can't stress enough to you the level and amount of side content you have. You land in Midgard at a big lake where the world serpent's at, and there are two separate occasions where the world serpent will leave that area to give you different levels of the water. What that does, it just makes the water levels go down and opens up more and more of the area, which, to be fair, can be frustrating if you're trying to get a raven out in the far distance and you can't quite get it yet, but you gotta realize you gotta come back later, and anything you get to, which I talk about later in this video, you can get to later, so don't worry. One of the best additions to this, speaking of Mimir, he's the head that was attached to the tree in the story. He's the smartest man that ever lived, and he is such a good addition to the three-man team you have. He fills the downtime during boat travel with lore, stories, and humor that makes the moments never feel boring, awkward, or silent. And during that time, it's really cool because you try to get shrines that are telling about Norse mythology. And at first, Atreus knows a bit about it, but when Atreus tries to go through the shrines, he kind of has a lot of blank spots he doesn't know about. But if you get those shrines with Mimir, he fills in those blanks, and it actually adds to the overall experience with having him on your team. That just, once again, is such a great addition. I can't believe they added it, and it's just, I can't stop glazing this game and what it does to the story. There's not really a bad dynamic between Kratos and Atreus during these, because between the gameplay where you're shooting and you use each other to bounce off abilities, and you see that in the story and cutscenes, especially with the last Baldur fight, where Atreus kind of really hones in his skills and is a complement to what Kratos is doing. Mimir is the same way, where in the storyline and the side content that he builds the world around with you, he helps in the same way, and it breaks up, if there was monotony between Kratos and Atreus, it breaks that up completely. It's perfection. It's great. To wrap up any side content, you do have ravens of Odin you need to kill. There are artifacts to collect and additional side bosses. I do have to say, the best side boss is the Valkyries in this. They're challenging and fun if you do them kind of early. If you do them later in the story, they're still challenging here and there, but they could be even harder. The Valkyrie Queen is such a hard boss, and it's so fun to fight. She takes all of the abilities from the Valkyries that you put on this like shrine, and when you get there and you put them all together, she pops out, grabs you by the neck, and the fight immediately starts. It's so hype and fun, and it's definitely hair pulling whenever you make a mistake. You're just like, okay, I'm just gonna reset, we'll just try this again. It's very fun. It's one of the best side bosses I've ever had to fight in this game and in any game period. I can't leave this game without talking about the visuals all by themselves. The visuals are absolutely stunning, even today. Now, what you're seeing is I captured this on a PS5, but to think back in 2018, where there's these moments where you're walking through the forest or you're out in Midgard, and I just couldn't help myself but stop, look around, and think to myself, oh my god, this really came out on a PS4? Playing on the PS5 definitely helps, like with frame rates, I'm sure, and other aspects of the graphics, but even so, the art direction and technical execution here are impossible to deny, and it's very breathtaking. Even when I'm reviewing the footage here and watching what I did, I'm still just in amazement because there are games that come out now, AAA releases, that do not look as good as this game. Now here's my favorite part as always, the platinum grind. This is one of the best platinum experience I've ever had. I'm so excited to talk through it. Nothing is missable, which means you can enjoy the story at your own pace without constantly checking a guide or worrying about locking yourself out of trophies. That alone makes it a stress-free and enjoyable hunt. Even when you're spending hours clearing side islands or optional content, it never feels tedious. The rewards are meaningful, and the pacing of each activity feels unique enough to stay engaging. And as always, I'm going to give you my advice when it comes to getting your platinum journey even smoother. First, you can fully enjoy the story from start to finish without missing anything, so just take your time. Trust me, you can take the time to enjoy the story. It is okay. And depending on your difficulty that you're playing on, which I played on Give Me a Challenge, which is the difficulty below Give Me God of War, I didn't have any issues when it came to story. It all came from the side content that I tried to challenge myself on, which that gave me enough challenge to keep me engaged in the overall story. Speaking of difficulty, play on whatever difficulty you want. First, the platinum is not tied to any difficulty challenges, which is another bonus to this. And two, Give Me God of War challenge is just too grueling. It's not fun to me. I'm sure there's definitely people out there that have, and no hate to you. I'm glad you had fun with it. But I needed a challenge enough to where I didn't want to throw my controller across the wall. So what I would recommend is just make sure that you do it on at least Give Me a Challenge, so that way you're also not mind-numbingly bored by just pressing attack over and over without any consequences to what you're doing. As you're traveling through this, try to go out of your way to pick up artifacts as you can minimize backtracking throughout this, especially in the mountain area. That zone is rough to traverse later on, especially when you're trying to get through it, and then on top of that, you have to go through your side checklist on the right, and you're missing just one artifact in the mountain. It can be kind of time consuming and a little frustrating. Ravens follow the same logic, grab them as you see them. Niflheim is a roguelike realm where you gather currency and escape before the mist kills you or any other enemies that are inside there. Save this for post-game, especially on higher difficulties because it can be frustrating. Go in, grab your currency, return, and you repeat until you clear the central chests, which are tied to a trophy. It's very simple. It gives you a lot of good rewards that help you with post-game challenges that allow you to take on them with less hassle. And one of those new post-game challenges is actually Muspelheim. Sorry if I'm butchering that name. It is a combat gauntlet. It's basically where you go through 6 trials with two different difficulties of basically easy and hard, and then you get to the final one, which is one of the Valkyries you have to beat, and then you'll come back for a impossible challenge, and this impossible challenge goes through all of them. There are basically enhanced versions of what you were doing before. You don't need to complete all of them, you only need to do 3, and the 3 I would recommend is 2, 4, and 5 to unlock the final trial, which is a joke compared to the impossible trials you just completed. So what do I think of God of War 2018? I genuinely believe it's not only deserved Game of the Year, but that it's truly a masterpiece of a video game. Not only from gameplay, but even in art and even in storytelling. From the character arcs to the combat to the collectibles, it's near perfect example of what trophy hunting should be by itself. More importantly, it's one of the best stories of growth and grief I've ever experienced in a video game. If you never played this game before, it needs to be next on your list. Whether you just want to beat it or fully complete it like I did, it's worth the journey either way. And if this video helped convince you to replay it, I'm glad I could help you come back, because it's worth it. I give God of War 2018 5 Fs out of 5 for the game itself. I give the Platinum experience another 5 Fs out of 5. After finishing this game, I'm diving straight into the sequel of Ragnarok. I can't wait to see how the confrontation with Thor finally plays out from Atreus' dream. I also hope that the story pans out with this conclusion, because I did see, not complete spoilers, but minor ones that showcase this might be the end of the Norse era of this game, so that would be cool to see how it pans out. If you want to see any more video game or movie reviews and many more, please make sure to hit that sub button and make sure to follow us below. We'll see you for the next one.